Hey guys, it's the Disco Spider, and before I watched the show, I noticed that there was a ton of fans of the Miraculous Ladybug. Mainly ones that loved writing fanfics of the two main characters and shipped them so hard, and that kinda made me disinterested in the show. But months later, after seeing so many edits of the two main characters and how many people loved it, I decided to check it out to see if I'm missing anything. But was this French cartoon that good and worth writing all these insane fanfics about? Or would my hatred for the show turn me into a villain of Hawkmoth? The show is about a teenager, Marionette, who has the power to become Ladybug, a superhero, and along with their partner Cat Noir, they both stop any villain that is created by Hawkmoth. The show is way too formulaic. It feels like Phineas and Ferb, except without the charm, likability, humor, and catchy songs that the first few seasons had. This, on the other hand, feels very boring, because you already know exactly what's gonna happen, so it ruins any fun the show could have had. I mean, like, every episode's like this. A character feels an emotion that isn't happiness, Hawkmoth turns them into a villain, they wreak havoc, and then Ladybug and Cat Noir stop them. Even the techniques of stopping the bad guy are the same, and heck, they even reuse some of the same few scenes in each episode, like the transformation scenes and the Hawkmoth scenes. But it gets even worse when we talk about the villains, but I'll get to them when we talk about the characters. And the subplots aren't even that good either. Each episode has a little subplot with Marionette, and although I will admit that sometimes it does go along with the main plot and how the villain of the episode is involved with the subplot, but even with that, there is no point to have these subplots. They get introduced at the beginning, and then we forget all about them until the very end of the episode, where they forcefully try to end the subplot. And I get that they want to tie everything together, but the subplots are just very cliched. I mean, there's 2 episodes about how Marionette accidentally does something on someone's phone, so she steals it, and then at the end of the episode she gives it back to the person. First off, the resolution was very weak and anticlimactic because we didn't spend enough time on the subplot, and second, this subplot has been done to death, where someone accidentally does something on someone's phone. They always accidentally send someone something, and then they now have to retrieve the phone and delete that text message or voice message. I mean, even Loud House is a similar episode, but that episode was actually good, because they built on the subplot, and they did it in its own style, which made it fresh and unique and fun. In short, all the episodes are way too similar and formulaic that it ruins the fun and makes the show boring to sit through, especially when you have to marathon a ton of these episodes. And as for the characters, first we have Marionette. I think she is a likable character. I like her shy and quirky personality, and she does make me root for her. But even that has some negative, because she feels like every other quirky main lead. She doesn't stand out and is forgettable. Besides being shy, there's just nothing to her, and we don't even really get to see her struggles with being a superhero and a regular girl. Yeah, sure, there are plots about that, like the episode where she gets grounded, but she just shrugs it off, and the whole thing gets resolved at the very end, even without showing us how or anything. At least Kim Possible, and especially Peter Parker from Spectacular Spider-Man, we get to see both of their lives and the struggles of keeping them separate. And then when she turns into Ladybug, she loses all her personality. She just becomes a very generic superhero. At least Kim was the same on missions and at school. It feels like she becomes a different character by not being shy and timid. You can argue that she doesn't need to be shy because she has superpowers and no one knows who she is, but it would be nice to see her personality with her persona. And then we have Adrien. This guy is a complete borefest. He has no personality at all and just becomes a pretty face with a good heart. But funny enough, when he turns into Cat Noir, then he starts becoming somewhat likable. Cracking jokes and having fun is cool to see, but I don't understand why he changes personalities. I mean, you can say the same thing about Peter Parker where he cracks jokes as Spider-Man, but as Peter he becomes the everyday man. But it works more with Spider-Man than Cat Noir because we get to see some guy we can relate to having these superpowers. Although I can relate to Marionette, I can't relate to Adrien at all, since he has no depth, and that he's a billionaire model that has everything. And at least Peter Parker had a great backstory and development in Spectacular Spider-Man. Adrien does not. His whole story about his father being neglecting is very cliched and isn't done in an interesting way. And as for Marionette getting development, she doesn't. It would have been cool to see her get used to her powers, but in the first episode, she already knows how to use it, making me connect less to her because she doesn't really go through anything throughout the first season. But as for the relationship between the two main characters, I actually like it. Well, Ladybug and Cat Noir at least. Adrien and Marionette aren't that interesting, and I don't really care much for the relationship. But I will say one thing that I will give the show credit is that I like the twist to the whole cliche of they both like each other but they just don't know it. I like how they think they like different people. Marionette likes Adrien and Cat Noir likes Ladybug. They technically like each other but they just think they're different people. I think that whole aspect is cool. And then we have our main villain, Hawkmoth. He sucks. He is not menacing at all. All he does is stay in this dark room and gets other people to get the powers of Ladybug and Cat Noir. And he gets mad all the time when the villain he created gets defeated. It's dumb. Why doesn't he do anything? It's like if Slade from Teen Titans, all he did was watch the Titans from afar and send other people to destroy them. And also, why doesn't Ladybug and Cat Noir go try and capture him? I mean, they are aware that he's the reason why everyone is turning into villains, but there is no mention at all in the first season of them trying to find out where Hawkmoth is so they can defeat him for once and for all. You do understand if you stop him, there won't be any evil in your town. And then we have the other villains. They suck too. They all have the same motive, which correlates to how the show is so formulaic. The characters always want revenge, either on a certain person, a group of people, or something else, and I find that it's really dumb if they feel at least a little hatred for a certain character. Poof, you're a villain. In fact, later on in the season, they start forcing it even more, and they make villains out of anyone who's sad, instead of feeding through the hatred or something. And I would have preferred it more if they were villains by choice, instead of being forced to. At least with the villains of Spectacular Spider-Man, we got to see their backstory, and them transforming by choice. And yeah, a few villains became villains by choice or because of a tragedy, but that works because of the backstory. Plus, it was only a select few. In this show, every villain is the same. They all have the same motive, they're all forced to be villains, and they're all serious. It would have been cool if they had some comedic villains along with the serious ones, or the threatening villains along with the weak villains. You could have at least had fun with it, but instead they chose to make every single villain the same. And then we have the animation. Although I do like the design, it doesn't work with CGI. It would have worked a lot better if it was in Flash or something. All the characters look bad, except for Marionette, who for some reason is the only character to have some facial expression, which is why she's the best looking character out of all the bunch. And lastly, I want to talk about how they fucked up a few episodes, mainly my least 3 favorite episodes. The first episode and the 2-part season finale. I really hate how they left the origin episode for the very last episode of the season. When I watched the first episode, I was really confused how the show worked. I had to guess throughout the first episode. I didn't know if people knew Marionette was Ladybug, or if her best friend knew, or if Cat Noir knew, or if Ladybug and Cat Noir were partners. Since at first it seemed like they were just separate characters that just kept on clashing into each other. But after the second and third episode, I started to finally understand the show. But it would have been better if they had the 2-parter as the first 2 episodes, or maybe even call it like a TV movie / pilot or something, so that I could see Marionette get used to her powers and understand the dynamic of the show much quicker. But it being the last episodes of the season was dumb because we already knew everything in that episode. It's there to tell us how her powers work and why she has to capture the butterfly, but there just wasn't a point to watching the episode except to find out that the old guy gave them the powers and that Hawkmoth has a Miraculous as well. But it felt like we were going backwards instead of going forwards with the story. And there are ways they could have made this episode better if it had been more like the Spectacular Spider-Man episode where Parker had flashbacks of Uncle Ben and his origins. He grew from going back to his origins, and Marionette could have done the same if the episode took place after episode 24, but it was about Marionette going back to her origins and learning more about herself and growing as a character or something. It would have been great to get some development from her, but nope. All we got was just 2 boring and pointless episodes for the season finale. In general, although there are a few good things about the series, there are a ton of flaws and problems that I have for the show. So sadly, I would call Miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir a boring and unfun show that I wouldn't recommend. But what did you guys think of Miraculous Ladybug? Are you like me and hate it, or did you actually really like it? Because I know that there's people who really love this show. Leave in the comments. I'm interested for people who do like the show to give me insight on why they like it, because the show actually has a pretty big fan base. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you completely disagree with this video and you hate me, also leave a like because it's opposite day. And subscribe for more reviews on older and newer cartoons. And with that, I'm the Disco Spider, and peace out.